Samantha's breath came in short, ragged gasps as she pushed through the latest corridor, the stench of damp carpet filling her nostrils. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, each thud echoing the hum-buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. The yellow walls, stained and peeling, seemed to close in on her with every step. She turned a corner sharply, her worn sneakers slipping slightly on the concrete floor strewn with rubble. A dead end loomed before her, the sight of it like a physical blow. She stood still for a moment, eyes wide, taking in the yellowed bricks that blocked her path. Panic clawed at her throat, the stark realization hitting her. She was trapped. Desperation twisted in her gut as she turned on her heels, scanning the endless maze for any sign of an escape, her mind racing with thoughts of the entity lurking in the shadows. "Quite the predicament you've found yourself in." The voice cut through the monotony of the buzzing lights, deep and resonant. Samantha spun around, her pulse quickening. Dr. Oliver Lancaster stepped from around a corner, his presence nearly as disorienting as the backrooms themselves. He was the epitome of contradiction, greying hair framing his sharp features, giving him an air of distinguished authority that clashed with the chaotic environment. "Dr. Lancaster," Samantha said. "Indeed," he replied, his tone laced with a casual friendliness that belied the depth of his knowledge. His eyes, dark pools reflecting secrets and unspoken truths, fixed upon her with an intensity that felt almost tangible. Samantha couldn't help but wonder what lurked beneath his charismatic veneer. What experiences had carved the lines into his face so gracefully? Dr. Lancaster stood calmly amidst the madness of mono-yellow, a figure of intrigue that commanded attention not by his words, but by the sheer force of his enigmatic aura. Samantha knew that behind those eyes lay a mind that had navigated these corridors more times than one could fathom, a compass in human form. As he stepped closer, the cool air seemed to shift, the perpetual hum of the lights underscoring the gravity of their encounter. Samantha held her breath, caught between the fear of the unknown and the instinctual draw towards the man who might just hold the key to her survival in this labyrinthine nightmare. "Lost, are we, Samantha? Can you blame me?" "Dr. Lancaster." "Of course not," he chuckled, stepping forward with a grace that seemed out of place among the concrete and chaos. His hand extended towards her, palm open and inviting. "Dr. Lancaster, allow me to be your guide." The fluorescent lights above buzzed their monotonous tune, casting an eerie pallor on his face. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest like a frantic drumbeat, her mind racing. The night, she'd heard whispers of its existence, a living shadow lurking just beyond perception, waiting to ensnare the unwary. Was he, with his friendly demeanor and hidden depths, another aspect of this fear? "Guide me. Why and how? Because no one deserves to be trapped here, and because I know the way." Her hesitation hung in the heavy air between them, a tangible thing, trusting Dr. Lancaster could lead her further into the maze's grip, or worse, straight into the arms of something far more sinister. Yet the alternative was to remain lost alone with only the hum of the lights for company. Samantha, "All right, lead the way, Dr. Lancaster." "Oliver is fine," he replied with an amiable nod, the corners of his eyes crinkling as if they too were privy to secrets untold. Samantha breathed in deeply, bracing herself against the rising tide of uncertainty. She followed him, her steps tentative, the device in her pocket, a promised beacon in darkness, suddenly feeling like the weight of the world. Samantha clung to the threadbare hope that Dr. Lancaster was her lifeline as they ventured deeper into the labyrinth of monotony. The air, thick with the stench of mildew and the incessant drone of flickering lights, pressed in on her from all sides. "Dr. Lancaster." "Understand, Samantha, the backrooms are much more than a series of abandoned spaces. This level is a living entity, unpredictable and ever-changing." She glanced at him, attempting to absorb the gravity of his words. He walked with purpose, his steps measured and sure, as if the yellowed carpet beneath them was familiar territory. Each corridor at each turn can lead to salvation or peril. The entities that dwell here, they're not bound by our logic. Caution and knowledge are your best allies. Samantha's gaze fixed on the concrete walls, on the occasional rubble that made her footsteps falter. "How can you know so much?" Samantha asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of disbelief. "Years of observation and interaction," Dr. Lancaster replied, his tone calm and measured. "You see, some entities are benign, mere shadows cast by our own fears. Others—" His words trailed off, leaving silence to fill the gaps. "Others?" Samantha prompted, her curiosity piqued. "Others are like the night, abstract, more concept than creature. It could be a room that feels alive, watching you, or a darkness that swallows sound. You may never see it, but it sees you, Dr. Lancaster explained, his voice carrying an eerie weight. A chill crept down Samantha's spine, the idea of such an entity both enthralling and terrifying. Her fear, once a wild thing clawing at her insides, settled into a wary alertness under the weight of his words. "Stay close," Dr. Lancaster instructed. "I can navigate these corridors, but vigilance is paramount. We must respect the nature of this place." As she followed the rhythmic tap of his shoes against the concrete, Samantha found herself leaning into the cadence of his speech, into the confidence that seemed to emanate from him like a force field. She didn't fully trust him, not yet, but in a realm where nothing was as it seemed, his certainty was a flicker of light in the darkness. Samantha's footsteps echoed softly in the sprawling labyrinth of the backrooms as she trailed behind Dr. Lancaster, her gaze darting to landmarks he gestured towards. A crack in the wall that zigzagged like forked lightning, a door with peeling paint that hung ajar, a stain on the carpet that resembled an ink blot test. "Note these," Dr. Lancaster said, his voice steady. "They are constants in this ever-shifting place, fixed points in our sea of chaos." "Constants?" Samantha echoed, her eyes narrowing as she tried to grasp the concept. "Indeed, this one, for example, always appears precisely 17 corridors from the safe point we're heading towards. It's comforting, in a way," Dr. Lancaster explained, a hint of reassurance in his tone. "Comforting isn't the word I would use," Samantha muttered under her breath, but she studied the landmarks all the same, etching them into her memory. As they turned a corner, the monotonous yellow stretched on, unrelenting. Samantha gathered her courage, her curiosity piqued by the enigma beside her. "Samantha, Dr. Lancaster, how did you come to know so much about this place? What brought you here?" He glanced at her, the friendly smile never reaching those deep eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. "Oh, a series of fortunate or unfortunate events, depending on one's perspective." "Can you be more specific?" Specificity can be a dangerous thing in the backrooms. It's better to focus on the present, on survival. The past is often a distraction. Samantha's brows knitted together, frustration bubbling within her. He was a riddle wrapped in mystery, every answer spun from silver threads of evasion. And yet she couldn't shake the feeling that understanding Dr. Lancaster was key to unraveling the backrooms themselves. "I'm surviving with is another. Trust must be earned, Samantha. Let's focus on getting you out of here. Then perhaps my story will unfold in time." His deflection was a polished dance, steps practiced and perfected. Samantha sighed, conceding the moment, recognizing the futility of pressing further when his walls were as impenetrable as the concrete around them. "Lead the way, Dr. Lancaster." Her resolve hardening, she would follow, for now, but the seeds of doubt planted in the barren fields of trust would need tending if she ever hoped to harvest the truth. The dim corridor stretched before them, a monotonous canvas painted in the sickly yellow of aged fluorescence. Dr. Oliver Lancaster's footsteps were measured, the sound punctuating the humming silence. Samantha trailed behind, her gaze flitting across the endless expanse of uniform walls. "Once, I encountered what some call the night here in these very halls." Samantha's stride faltered for a heartbeat. "Samantha, the night?" The words felt heavy on her tongue, weighted with dread and curiosity. "Dr. Lancaster." "Ah, yes. Unlike our more tangible companions in the backrooms, the night is an enigma, an entity that defies the usual parameters. It's like a living shadow, consuming spaces as it pleases. One moment you're standing in a well-lit room, the next you're engulfed in darkness so absolute it feels alive." "Samantha, alive?" Her skin prickling at the notion. "Dr. Lancaster." "Very much so, and it's capricious. It might recede as suddenly as it arrives, or it could linger, testing your will to remain calm, to adapt." A smile played on Dr. Lancaster's lips, but his eyes remained serious, watchful. "Vigilance, Samantha, and adaptability. These are your true companions." Her breath caught. In this place where reality contorted, such tales seemed less like legends and more like ominous prophecies. She watched him, a man seemingly at ease within impossibility, and something akin to trust kindled within her chest. He had knowledge of these horrors, yet walked unafraid. "Samantha, have you experienced this night? Once, perhaps twice, it's hard to tell. Time and memory meld peculiarly here. But I've learned to find my way through the dark when needed." Samantha nodded, absorbing his words. With each step, the unease that gnawed at her bones softened into a cautious alliance. Here was a man who had faced the abyss and emerged with the knowledge she needed to navigate this labyrinth. His guidance was a beacon in the oppressive gloom, yet doubt lingered, a stubborn shadow at the edge of her thoughts. His answers came too readily, his composure too practiced. Was he a mentor schooling her in the art of survival, or a maestro conducting a symphony of deceit? She pushed the thought aside. For now, she needed the light he offered, however faint it might be. Samantha, thank you! Her gratitude genuine, despite the reservations that clung to her. Dr. Lancaster, think nothing of it, Samantha. We all need a guiding hand in the darkness. Their path wove through the silent corridors, his anecdotes a strange comfort against the backdrop of the Backrooms' madness. In the dance of trust and suspicion, Samantha found herself a reluctant partner, moving to the rhythm set by the enigmatic Dr. Lancaster. Dr. Lancaster's hand gestured towards an unassuming section of the wall, the monotony of yellowing wallpaper giving way to a subtle outline. With a gentle push, a hidden door creaked open, revealing a small room untouched by the pervasive hum that haunted every corner of the back rooms. Dr. Lancaster, quickly now! His voice a low thrum against the eerie stillness. Samantha slipped in after him, her heart pounding a staccato rhythm that echoed the flicker of doubt in her mind. The door closed with a soft click, sealing them away from the labyrinthine expanse. Inside, the air held a stillness that was almost sacred, a hushed pause in the cacophony of their grim reality. Dr. Lancaster, take a moment. We're safe here for now. She leaned against the cool brick wall, allowing herself the luxury of a deep breath. In this brief sanctuary, the oppressive dread lifted like mist at dawn, granting her a fleeting repose. She watched as Dr. Lancaster moved with purpose, retrieving a cylindrical container from his bag. Dr. Lancaster, here, he said, rolling out a sheet of paper across a makeshift table. This might help us chart our course. The map sprawled before her, lines and annotations swirling into a cartographer's nightmare. It was a meticulous record of madness, each stroke of ink a testament to the backroom's chaotic order. Dr. Lancaster's finger traced paths and corridors, his explanation punctuated with the occasional scientific term that Samantha struggled to understand. Every mark is a piece of the puzzle. Knowledge is our most potent weapon here. Samantha studied the map, its complexity a mirror to the enigma standing beside her. Her hope flickered like a candle in a drafty room, vulnerable yet persistent. Dr. Lancaster seemed to read her thoughts, offering a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Trust the map, Samantha. It's our beacon in the dark, Samantha. Thank you. Her voice steadier than she felt. His knowledge was a lifeline, yet her intuition whispered caution, urging her to see beyond the friendly facade. Remember, not everything is as it seems, but that applies to both threats and havens alike. Samantha nodded, absorbing the veiled meaning in his words. As they prepared to step back into the unknown, she pocketed the map, its weight heavy with promise and peril. Samantha's fingertips traced the lines of the map, each corridor and turn etched with precision. She looked up at Dr. Lancaster, his silhouette framed by the dim light that bled into their temporary haven. Samantha, we need more than just a map. If we're going to survive this place, we need to understand it. And we can't do it alone. Dr. Lancaster. Agreed, the back rooms are vast and there are entities here. Some may prove to be allies if we can find them. Entities? Her heart raced at the thought. The idea of other beings trapped in this liminal space was both terrifying and comforting. Yes, others who've learned to navigate these endless rooms, they possess knowledge that could prove invaluable, but we must approach with caution. Not all have intentions as clear as ours. Samantha. Then it's settled. She straightened her shoulders, feeling a surge of determination. She wasn't alone. Together they could gather the information needed to outwit the labyrinthine traps of this place. Before we leave. He interrupted her thoughts, reaching into the pocket of his worn jacket. He pulled out a small device, no larger than a pocket watch, its surface dull and nondescript. Yet, as he handed it to her, a faint glow emanated from within, casting an eerie light on their faces. This will help us. It detects fluctuations in the backroom's fabric. It'll warn us of darker corners where entities like the night might dwell. Samantha. The night? Dr. Lancaster. Yes, an entity or perhaps a living anomaly. It's elusive, but this will alert us to its presence and others like it. Thank you, she breathed out, clutching the device tightly. It was a beacon in the oppressive gloom, a sliver of hope that they might stay one step ahead of the dangers lurking unseen. Knowledge and tools, Samantha, that's how we'll conquer the backrooms. With a newfound sense of purpose and the weight of the glowing device in her possession, Samantha felt the icy grip of fear loosen. They were no longer wandering in the dark. They had a plan, a map, and now a warning system. Her resolve hardened. She would face whatever came next head-on, no longer a victim of this twisted reality, but a challenger ready to claim her escape.